Soul Simmers, and welcome back to a brand new video in the Mod Mansion series. If you have not seen any of the prior episodes, in this series I'm building a big mansion for my moderators on Twitch. This was actually built live on Twitch, so we recorded all the streams and then we basically made them into speed builds for YouTube. If you want to see any of the prior episodes, if you want to see what we did beforehand, feel free to check out part 1, 2, and 3, where I basically build the shell and I do the landscaping and I work on the first parts of the common areas. This house has a lot of common space, like a lot of common space. In part 1 and 2 and 3, we work on the kitchen, the dining, the hallway, the first living room, the home cinema, the library, the game room, the extra kitchen, the party room, and the gym. So as you can hear, again, lots and lots of common space. And in this episode, we are going to decorate the art studio, the crafting space, the second living room, including a music corner and a pet hangout. And of course, we're going to do some more detailing. So I want to make sure that this mansion represents as much personality for my moderators as possible, meaning that I try to incorporate little details of everyone's hobbies, everyone's maybe signature outfits, stuff like that. So one of the things that I vividly remember from building this room is that I eventually end up finding a little orange beanie somewhere in my CC clutter. And then I realized that one of my moderators actually loves to wear a beanie, so we actually added that as if she is just living in the house and she just left it somewhere. So stuff like that is kind of a continuous process as we're building this. And I feel like as we're also going to start with the bedrooms, where I'm going to more properly introduce every single one of my moderators, that part is where I start to even think more about my moderator's personality. But I think, like I've said in previous episodes as well, by making all of these common spaces and trying to represent something that fit everyone, which was kind of a challenge because we're with a big team of people. There's 13 mods, and then you have me and my partner who are also going to live here. So there's a lot of different personalities, a lot of different interests, a lot of different styles. And in trying to make this space something that fit for all of us, I kind of learned a lot about what differences in styles we have, what sort of common denominators we have in styles, and in that you also learn a lot about people's personality, about people's interests, etc. As you can see right now, we are working on the second living room, so this house actually has a lot of open space that I needed to decorate, and specifically this space was basically just a huge hallway. It has all the doors to all of the bedrooms. It has basically the stairs leading up from the main hallway, and then from here you can also take 2 stairs that go up into the separate little tower rooms, as I call them. And that made it really difficult to figure out what I wanted to do with this space. We already had a game room, we already had our main living room, and at first I wasn't necessarily planning on making a second living room in this area, but I just didn't really know what else to do with the space. And then I realized that downstairs, the living room, 1, has a huge TV, and 2, it is more of a formal living room. It's the space where you will have your guests over. It is close to the kitchen and the dining area, and it's probably the space that you'll hang out when you have friends over. However, I also wanted to have a living room that in a way kind of had that similar feeling of Central Perk, that, the coffee cafe from Friends. It's a place where this group of people, this group of friends will hang out a lot. This is the place where we as roommates hang out. This is the place where everyone hangs out in the evening with their cup of tea. Maybe they're reading a book, or maybe they're playing a board game together. But I really wanted to have this space feel less like a formal, I guess living area, but and more just home. That's, I guess, the feeling that I was trying to get with this space. So we add a lot of board games. We add a lot of just a cozy clutter of things that you would expect, like music. This is the place where people would be playing LPs and hanging out together and just, sharing their passion for things, where you can have deep nightly conversations with your roomies about life and where you want to head to. And I feel like this space was really supposed to incorporate sort of that feeling. I think it is also shows in the furniture that I chose. So it's a more informal rug. The sofas are more informal. It might look like not that much of mansion furniture. It's really more like a homey sort of maybe secondhand vintage shopped. I know that one of my moderators is actually really into repurposing furniture, so I can imagine that this was a passion project from multiple people in the house, where everyone sort of worked together to make this a space that we all enjoy, that we all just love hanging out in. There's a bunch of pillows and blankets and cozy lights, and I really wanted this to embody sort of what it could look like if all of us were to hang out together. I feel like the board games really fit into that because it's one of those things that you can do with a really large group. I can absolutely see this be a corner where, I don't know, we're making a puzzle together or where we hang out with everyone and we just do like a board game night. And I just totally envision myself hanging out here with the group. Then something that I also realized is that a lot of us actually have pets, like either dogs or cats or bunnies, or I think there's some even that have other types of pets, but we have a lot of pets. And I realized, you know what, this corner here is actually kind of perfect to have a space for all of our pets to hang out. For some reason, I can just totally envision all of the pets, like the dogs and the cats, just chilling in this living room as well. Like they would probably also be outside. They might be downstairs in like the other living room too, but this is genuinely like the space where all of them will also hang out. And then when we are hanging out here playing board games and stuff, they will just come hang out with us. I think that was really cute, and I really like the idea of having that space for everyone. So I'm genuinely like, this is one of my favorite rooms in the house where I just would really love to be able to like actually hang out with everyone. This is also the moment where I realized that I really wanted to add a litter box somewhere, but for some reason I was like, this is a mansion, we cannot have a litter box just sitting out in the open. So I actually used one of the spaces underneath the stairs to have those self-cleaning litter boxes and kind of hide them away. And then there's a door so that your Sims and your pets can still go in. But I really like that idea of, you know, kind of using spaces that otherwise might not get used. Over here, you can also see another detail that I added that is another like reference to one of my moderators. One of my moderators is also a Twitch streamer, and their whole branding is around foxes. So as soon as I found like the little fox painting, I realized that that would be just perfect to add on the wall here. So that's what I meant when I say that, like, at this stage, I feel like I got better and better every single time I was working on the project by like adding small little details for everyone. And then we started working on this corner, which just turned out to be a somewhat awkward corner. Like, I didn't really know what to do with it. It was quite a big space. I felt like we already had so much space downstairs for a big TV and like other hobbies and stuff. And I knew that I wanted to represent a bunch of the other hobbies in the two little tower rooms that are also in this episode. So I was like, what do I add over here? At first, people were like, you can add a bunch of desks so everyone can game together. But then I realized that most of the people would have their own desk in their room, because for a lot of us, our setup is also a signature space. And then someone said maybe we can add like a piano or something, and I realized that it would actually be super cute if we make this into somewhat like of a music studio. So I end up adding those like typical rugs that you'll find because they're good for acoustics, and then I added a bunch of the like music making things in The Sims, which is not just the guitar and the violin and the piano, but also the music making station and the DJ booth. And then I just added a ton of plants to make sure that it looked really cozy, because I don't know, I just felt like even though none of us are like big musicians, like some of us play instruments, but it's not like we're all in a band or anything, but I still feel like if you have a mansion and you have this much space to create like skill building corners, this corner just made so much sense. As soon as the idea was sort of in my brain, I felt so comfortable making sure that that looked cozy, and I really can see all of us just kind of making music together for fun. And you know, who knows, maybe me and my moderators would also make a really good band. I don't know what I would play, but who knows. If you have any fun ideas for band names, let me know in the comments down below. Also, at this point, we're basically just adding some final details to make sure that this room looks like nice and cozy. I think this is one of the biggest challenges when you're doing such a big build, is that even at one point, your clutter will become like repetitive, because there's often a lot of clutter that doesn't really fit the right style, like with books or little cabinets or something, or plants. At one point, you've just used the things that make sense like a couple of times, and then you don't want to use them again because it feels like you're repeating yourself all the time. But at the same time, you cannot really use some of the other items because it just doesn't make a lot of sense that those items would be there, because they are not the right style at all. So I feel like at this point, I was definitely trying to figure out how I could sort of use items again without making it seem like I was repeating certain things over and over and over. So I guess that was also the point where I decided, you know what, I think it's time to switch to one of the two like tower rooms. I call them tower rooms because these are two separate rooms that are basically on like the tallest floor, like the fourth floor of the mansion. And these are two separate rooms that I knew from the beginning I really wanted to decorate as like hobby spaces or art spaces. One of the towers had windows, so I quite quickly decided that that would be the art studio. And at this point, I realized that for the art studio, I knew what kind of items I wanted. I had a couple of custom content packs specifically from my Shuno-san that I really wanted to use in here, but I also knew that if I wasn't going to grab everything in one go, I was just going to skip things or not find things or not realize that things were there. So I just went into the build by catalog and I basically grabbed a lot of things that I wanted to use in here. This is something that I usually don't do when I'm building. I most of the time just kind of work through the room and then find the items that I need. I don't very often go and like basically grab all the items that I want to use and then start decorating. So it was a bit of a reverse process for me, and I think that is something that is also very interesting when you're working on a project this long and you've been like trying to make it unique, trying to come up with creative concepts. At one point, it is actually very useful to switch out your building process. And I think this is something that for me definitely was a lesson learned because, like I said, I worked on this project for over 6 months. And at one point, sometimes it can just get not boring is not the right word, but it can just kind of become repetitive because you keep returning to the same project. And in the beginning, I had so much energy for this project. And then at this point, I think I was also feeling that I was ready to move on to like the bedrooms and really start working on the reason why I started this project, which was for everyone to get to know the mods better. And then what happened was that I actually ended up spending a lot of time on common spaces that didn't really allow us to get to know the mods better, even though in a lot of details it still did. It wasn't the original purpose of the project. So at this point, I was kind of just feeling like I was ready to move on to the next part of the build, but I also didn't want to abandon these rooms. So sometimes I got a bit more stuck, and I think that's something that I've learned over the past few months is one, changing up your building process can help a lot in that because it definitely makes your brain kind of rewire itself in how it goes about laying out a space. Because I wouldn't have added all of those easels like in the middle of the room as you can see me do here, but I ended up really liking that setup and it almost felt like a little art class. And I feel like, for instance, this room is bright pink, or actually it's not bright pink, but it's like a cozy pink. That is something that I also don't think I would have ever done had it not been for my Twitch chat, who literally suggested, hey, maybe you can do this or this or this color wise, or maybe you can add this or this as decoration. And I think for everyone, if you're ever stuck in building, even if you're not a content creator, like having other people come up with ideas or having other people look at your build and your building process to kind of give you more inspiration is so incredibly helpful. And I can absolutely recommend that to everyone. Funnily enough, I do think that this art space ends up being one of my favorite rooms in the entire house. I guess that's partially because of the lighting. I just absolutely love how the sunlight hits this room, and I just feel like therefore it is even more perfect to be a painting room. And I am not a painter by any means. I have absolutely zero skill in painting, but I just have a feeling like even I could paint something pretty here simply because the light is so beautiful and any reference image is just gonna look so pretty and so nice. I still think I would actually suck and not be able to paint more than just a stick figure, but the idea that this space feels like creative and the feeling that this space is making me want to paint, even though it is a literal in-game paint studio, I think is actually kind of cool. And I would love to hear so far, if you've watched this video and any of the other episodes, or if you watched me build this live on Twitch, I would absolutely love to hear what your favorite room is so far, or what your favorite skill building or like entertainment room is. Because we're getting close to the end of the common areas. We are just now working on the last room. And this room, initially, I had no idea what I wanted to do with. Whereas with the painting studio, I knew quite quickly we have enough like items in the game, especially with CC, to make an entire room for painting. With this room, I was like, I want to do something creative. I want to do something with skill building, but none of the skills in the game were actually like enough to fill the entire room. And I kind of realized that I should just mix and match all the hobbies that I had left together. At this point in time, businesses and hobbies had actually not come out, so I couldn't do a functional pottery space, but at the time I did have a pottery like CC set from Ciboulette. So I ended up making a space for pottery, I ended up making a space for gemology. I'm adding like cross stitching and knitting and basically just any other craft that I didn't add anywhere else in the house. And I could absolutely see this room just be a really cozy space for everyone to hang out and like work on their crafts and arts together. I do think it's a bit funny that everything is mushed together in one room because that does actually not make the most sense. But for some reason, I still really like the idea that maybe, I don't know, one of the mods is working on a necklace and then someone else is just working on their pottery next to it. And it just, the whole vibe just made me really happy. And also I think at this point where I realized that if I'm gonna mash all of these skills together, I feel like it should also be a room where just creativity shines. So that's where I decided that this room should have like a bit more of a colorful vibe to it. So I picked this wallpaper, and with that, sort of everything slowly started to fall in place, where I realized that for the colors, I could just do these like warmer colors, these pinks, these oranges, the greens, the yellows. And from that, it just kind of started to flow naturally. I made another small like living room vibe setup where everyone can do their knitting and their cross stitching and stuff like that. And this space was definitely one where I was running out of items, like I said earlier, of like I didn't want to continuously use the same items over and over and over again, because I was afraid that that would start to feel like I was repeating the same items or the same furniture or the same plants. So at this point, I was struggling a bit with that, so the color scheme definitely helped in breaking that up a little bit. But I'm happy that I end up decorating this room in a way that I do still like. I think it turned out pretty well. I don't think this is one of the best rooms in the house. Like I said, the art studio came together and it just felt right. Like everything in that room just made sense. And in this room, in the end, I still feel like it's a bit of a weird mismatch of things. But maybe that's also the fun of it, and that's just me really wanting to create like highly not customized but like highly matching rooms. And that is something that I tend to do in the game a lot, is I want everything to be super stylized, and I tend to rarely give my Sims homes that are a bit mismatching, or I don't know. It's just like I love the things that could go into like a magazine for interior design, rather than having the things that actually look like just homey. And this mansion definitely gave me that opportunity to sort of experiment a bit more with that and to make things look a bit more homey and a bit more, you know, real, I guess. So yeah, this is just me adding some final details. I guess this is where we're heading into the end of the video. So if you like this build so far, if you like this project, please toss these videos a cheeky like. If you enjoy it, subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of the future episodes. I'll make sure to add some nice music towards the end of this episode, so if there's a part without voiceover, that you can still enjoy it the last little bit. I will be uploading the rest of the episodes weekly, and from the next episode onwards, I'm gonna do it in a way where I'll do the voiceover for a specific bedroom, and then once we work on that bedroom, I'll just like basically put in some nice music, and then I'll do the voiceover for the next bedroom, so you're actually in real time seeing the bedroom of the person that I'm talking about. Because even if you missed this on Twitch, I still love this idea of this being a project where you can get to know my moderators better, because they do so much for me and my community and the content here, because one of my mods edits the Pack Legacy episodes and one of my mods actually edits the speed builds. So even if you're just a viewer on YouTube, these people are still very involved in my content, and I would absolutely love to introduce you to them more properly. So yeah, make sure to check out my channel, subscribe so that you don't miss those episodes. And with all of that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye, everyone!